Are you trying to find the perfect first camera? As a beginner, this can feel like an incredibly overwhelming process, trying to find the right one out of all the options out there.
Trust us, we have been there too, and in this video, we're gonna be your guiding light in a sea of confusion.
We're gonna avoid a whole lot of confusing technical jargon and focus on the timeless key principles that will help simplify things and make the whole process easier.
Hey guys, my name's Jono, this is Jason. We are full-time filmmakers based in Sydney, Australia. And in 2019, we started as complete beginners who knew nothing about cameras. And so in this video, we just wanted to share with you guys the 10 things that we wish we knew before buying our first photography, videography camera. So whether you're looking to do this professionally or you're simply wanting a camera to kind of take breathtaking moments or family memories, this video is for you. Think about, why do you need a camera in the first place? Because this will really dictate the type of camera that you're going to get. Do you want to treat this as more of a hobby, or do you want to take it to a more professional level?
When we were starting out in the summer of 2018, we bought our first camera, which is a second-hand Canon 1300D, because we wanted to start a cooking channel on YouTube. Its functions were pretty limited, but it got the job done because it really elevated our video quality, where previously we were just using a mobile phone.
However, looking back now, if we had known that we wanted to do photo and video professionally, we probably would have saved a bit more money to invest in a better quality camera from the very beginning. There were definitely a lot of points of frustration along our journey, especially when we first got started, where we were starting to do paid work, but we weren't able to reach a certain quality that we wanted to because we were limited with the camera that we had. This meant that, especially in the first 6 months of our journey, we wasted a lot of time, money, and effort swapping and upgrading our cameras as our skill level progressed and as the demands of our work increased over time. So before purchasing your first camera, ask yourself, what do you need the camera for? This will allow you to make a more informed decision around the type of camera that you're going to buy and the amount of money that you're going to be willing to spend.
And this leads us nicely to our second tip, which is to determine your budget. Now, if you're anything like us a few years ago when we first started, you probably have a pretty sad looking bank account.
However, if you're serious about pursuing photography and videography long term, I would suggest striking a good balance between investing in a good quality camera within a reasonable budget. I'd say around the range of $1,000 to $1,500 is a good place to start. Now, for a lot of you guys watching, you might be thinking, $1,000 to $1,500, that's a lot of money. There's no way I can afford it. And we get this question a lot on our channel, which is like, how do we actually earn the money to buy our cameras in the first place? For those type of questions, I always like to leave you guys with the golden nugget from one of my favorite books, which is Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where the rich dad essentially teaches his kids to never say the phrase, I can't afford it, and rather try to say, how can I afford it? Because the first phrase, I can't afford it, shuts your brain to any possibilities of finding an answer to the problem. It makes the automatic assumption that you can't afford it, and so you don't need to pursue your dreams or aspirations, while the second phrase opens your mind up to potential possibilities on finding solutions to get to where you want to get to.
And if you're looking to do this as a hobby, I do suggest more budget-friendly options. There are a lot of budget-friendly cameras out there. A good example is when we bought our second camera in 2019, the Canon SL2. It only cost around $500, which is quite budget-friendly.
Tip number 3 is what I like to call the role model method. This is a really unique tip that I think really helped us stand out as beginners. So what I want you to do is pick one creator, filmmaker, photographer on YouTube that you really look up to, whether it's their portfolio, the clients that they work with, or the money that they're earning. Buy the exact same camera model that they use the exact same camera settings that they use, and if they sell LUTs, buy them and learn how to color grade just like them. And if they have reference videos of previous work that they've done, copy the exact same shots that they do.
And the great thing about having role models on YouTube is they probably have video tutorials to how they got their image or how they got to their footage. Because of this, when you get your first camera, you have this really clear roadmap on how you can achieve the best possible look.
And a creator on YouTube who we really looked up to at the time was White and Rivery. And so we bought the exact same camera body that they used at that time, which was the Panasonic GH5, which is a beast of a camera. We copied the exact same camera settings that they used. So they shot on the natural profile, and so we shot on the natural profile. They had a range of wedding film LUTs for sale, and so we bought them and followed their color grading tutorials so we could get our footage to look exactly like theirs. On the wedding day, we created a shot list based on all the previous videos that they had created. Doing these steps and just following in the footsteps of our favorite creator just instantly elevated the quality of our work and really helped us stand out as beginners.
Tip number 4 is to look to buy secondhand, and this tip is really useful if you're conscious about your budget but are still looking to buy a good quality camera. And this is one tip that we regret not knowing when we first started out. We bought this Sony a7 III camera for 2005, brand new. But when we look into the secondhand market, we found that we could have bought this secondhand for $1,005. This would have saved us $1,000, which we could have invested into a good quality lens. However, there are some downsides and risks when you're looking to buy secondhand. You might need to consider the camera condition, reliability, potential damage, and wear and tear.
So if you are looking to buy secondhand, here are a few tips and tricks based on our experience of buying secondhand cameras over the last few years. Ask the seller if the camera is still covered under warranty. If it is, that's a great sign because it means that if something happens to the camera down the track, you don't have to cover the repair costs. Does the seller have the original receipt and the box for the camera? Because this will really help if you're looking to resell the camera later on. Organize an inspection before you purchase so you can test out the camera and make sure that everything is working. Oftentimes it's a good idea to just bring a memory card with you so you can actually just test out and take a few example shots whilst you're there. Ask the seller for the shutter count for the camera. This typically indicates how frequently the camera was used. Obviously, the lower the shutter count, the better. And finally, research what the camera is selling for online. Having a better idea of the value of the camera will give you some more room to potentially negotiate for a better price.
As beginners, we always have this misconception that the overall quality of our image depends on our camera body. Well, that is not necessarily true because the lens also plays a big part in affecting your whole image itself.
So make sure you also do a bit of research on lenses. Don't just focus on the camera body that you want to get, but also focus on what sort of lenses that you want to invest in down the track. Once you go with one camera brand and invest a bunch of money into buying lenses for that camera, it's then much harder to then switch over to another model. Lenses are such a huge part of the learning curve as you develop as a photographer and videographer. So make sure you get a camera that allows you to change lenses. Don't get one of those fixed lens cameras that doesn't allow you to use a variety of lens options.
When we first started, we really want to use the Sigma Art 18-35mm f1.8 lens. It is such a versatile lens that allows you to cover a wide variety of situations. Being able to pair this lens with the GH5 body instantly elevated our body of work.
Tip number 6 is to think about whether you want to pursue both photo and video or whether you want to just specialize in either one. Because there are some really great photography cameras out there who don't do video or have limited video capability. And then there are also really great video cameras out there like the Blackmagic cameras, the Panasonic GH5, but they're not the best for photography. For us, when we started really trying to pursue this professionally, we wanted to learn both photo and video because we felt like having that skill set would really add the most value to people. However, we kind of made the mistake of getting the Panasonic GH5 as our first professional camera because don't get me wrong, the GH5 is a beast of a video camera, but it's quite limited when it comes to photography. And so in our first few months of doing professional work, we were kind of limited in the sense of not being able to do professional photography work.
So before you buy your first camera, have a good think on what kind of creator you want to be. Do you want to be a hybrid shooter where you can do both photos or videos? Or do you just want to specialize in just one of them? Number 7 is autofocus. This is an interesting tip because it depends on whether you want to do just video or both video and photos. If you're just looking to focus on video, I would say that the autofocus function is not necessarily needed because these days, a lot of the professional work that we do is done with just manual focus. And looking back, we've benefited greatly from having the Panasonic GH5 as our first camera. The autofocus on this camera isn't great, so using the GH5, we were forced to learn how to use manual focus.
We know a lot of people in the industry who have been doing professional work for a few years now who still just rely on autofocus and can't actually do manual focus because they started off with cameras that had really good autofocus, so they just never bothered to learn how to use manual focus. However, if you're looking to do photography, especially photography where you're required to kind of capture really specific moments such as weddings, events, or sports, then I would recommend getting a camera with good autofocus.
Tip number 8 is to do research on the low light capability of your camera. To keep it simple for you guys, This essentially means how high you can push your ISO on your camera before the image starts getting grainy and unusable. As a beginner starting out, it's unlikely that you have access to lighting equipment, and especially shooting indoors, you might find yourself having to bump up your ISO to expose the image correctly.
For example, when we were starting out as beginners, we did a lot of shoots at cafes and restaurants, which oftentimes didn't have great lighting situations, especially in the areas where they were cooking. So having things like a lens that went down to a lower aperture and a mini light that we could use to light up the scene helped a bit, but what was really a game changer was when we upgraded to something like the Sony a7 III, which had amazing low light capability compared to something like our beginner Canon 200D.
So how do you find out about the low light quality of a camera? Well, the best tip we could give is to watch reviews on YouTube regarding the camera that you want to buy. Often the creator would test by bumping up the ISO to as high as possible before the footage becomes grainy and unusable.
Tip number 9 is to think about resolution and frame rates. This is a topic that a lot of people can get very passionate about, and sometimes people can use it as a bit of a flex. Oh, my camera can shoot 6K at 100 frames per second. Oh, guess what? My camera can shoot 8K at 240 frames per second. But I'm just gonna cut to the chase and tell you guys what you need at a minimum as a beginner. So get a camera that at a minimum can do 1080p at 24 frames per second and 1080p at 60 frames per second, which will also allow you to get slow motion shots.
Many beginners have it in their heads that it is 4K or the end of the world. But even to this day, we deliver a lot of our client projects in 1080p. For our clients, they don't care whether the video is in 1080 or in 4K. They just want a high quality engaging video to share with others and online. Now, if you can afford a camera that could shoot in 4K, that is always a bonus. This is because 4K allows you to crop in without sacrificing the quality of the image.
Now the final tip, it's a cliche one, but it's also very true, and it's not about the camera, it's about the person behind the camera. But more importantly, it's about your mindset. We got started on this journey and started doing paid gigs with a $500 beginner camera, a kit lens that came along with it, and a $60 aperture light. I see a lot of beginner filmmakers who are completely stacked with gear. They have an a7 III, a few lenses, even a drone and some audio equipment, but yet they still struggle to find ways of improving in their craft and getting paid work.
We see a lot of filmmakers and photographers who fall into the victim mindset.
But all you can really do is just take responsibility for your own life and take action towards your goals. Just put yourself out there anyways. Be fearless and do shoots that you're not ready for. Say yes to opportunities that you have no idea how to do, and just figure it out along the way. That's probably the biggest learning that I wish we had when we first got started on this journey and before buying our first cameras. And I hope that that's going to be a big takeaway that you guys can learn from this video. So those are the 10 things that we wish we knew before buying our first photography and videography camera. I hope you guys found it useful. If you did, please leave a comment down below and tell us what was the most useful tip that you guys found from this video. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you like it, give it a like. Subscribe to our channel if you want more content around filmmaking, self-development, and business. We also have an email newsletter link in the description box down below. If you guys ever have any questions, feel free to just email us at jonoandjason@gmail.com. We've been catching up with a lot of our subscribers recently, either in person or through Zoom, and it's been really lovely getting to know all of you guys in the community. So if you ever just want to have a chat, feel free to just reach out. And with that, guys, that's it from us. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.